Good morning, friends. Today is Monday, April 6th, and this is a very exciting week here at our house, and I'm sure at your house too. We're getting ready for a very special holiday coming up this Sunday. Do you know what holiday that is? Easter. Yeah, I love Easter. It's probably my favorite holiday. Well, I've encouraged you to read some Easter books on Epic this week. We're going to be doing lots of Easter activities, but I thought this morning that I would share this book with you called Easter in the Garden. It's one of my favorite books, and as you can see, I'm sitting outside, so you might even hear some birds chirping while we're reading this book. I notice on the front cover that there's a picture of a boy, and he's looking in a nest that has some eggs, and then he's looking in an empty tomb. Well, let's find out what happens in Easter in the Garden. Micah carried a small rake and a stick that was sharpened at one end. He tried to step in the footprints left by his father's sandals in the dusty Jerusalem road as they walked to the garden where his father worked. Looks like Micah's going to work with his dad. Micah felt proud that he had his own tools to use as he helped his father to dig up weeds or rake the dead leaves from under the trees. Sometimes, if there were flowers blooming, Micah picked a small bouquet to take home to his mother. Then she would smile, pat him on the head, and tell him that one day he would grow up to be a wonderful gardener just like his father. You can see his dad working over here in the garden. But there was something else that Micah liked to do even more than working in the garden. When the morning sun was just starting to wake up the world, Micah loved to creep out of the house and go to the garden all by himself. In the center of the garden, there was an old olive tree that raised its twisted limbs towards the sky. Micah would wedge his toes and his fingers into the bumpy bark and climb up the trunk to one of the highest branches. Do you like to climb trees just like Micah? There he would hide in the soft green leaves, pretending that he was a bird or a shiny-eyed lizard waiting for a tasty cricket to hop by. He's using his imagination to pretend he's a lizard too. One morning, as Micah sat daydreaming in the tree, he spied a surprise tucked into a branch. It was a small round bird's nest. Carefully, he crept along the branch until he could look more closely, and in the nest, he saw 3 speckled eggs. He wondered what kind of bird had laid them and when they might hatch. After that morning, each time Micah went to the garden, he scampered up the tree to check on the eggs, but they always looked the same, still and smooth as small speckled stones. So there's that nest that we saw on the front cover with the eggs inside. One day after helping his father, Micah stayed behind to peek into the nest one more time. Nothing had changed though. Micah sighed. But then he had a scary thought. What if the baby birds weren't going to hatch? What if they died? Slowly he climbed down the tree trunk and he started up the dusty road towards home. Oh, he's worried that maybe those baby birds aren't going to hatch. Just then, he heard loud noises in the distance. He ran to see what was happening. He saw a crowd of angry people yelling and waving their fists in the air. Roman soldiers were dressed in helmets and red tunics, waving their iron swords and ordering the crowd to make way. They looked fierce, so Micah ducked behind a stone wall and he waited for the mob to pass by. His heart was pounding with fear. Well, I think I would be scared too if I saw all those soldiers and people yelling. As soon as they were gone, Micah ran all the way home. "Mother, Mother!" he shouted as he rushed to the doorway. Micah's mother sat on a stool with her head in her hands. When she looked up, Micah could see that there were tears shining in her dark eyes. She held out her arms and Micah ran into them. Oh, his mother is very sad. Do you see her? "What's happening?" Micah asked as his mother held him tightly. Micah's mother told him that something very sad had happened. Their friend, Jesus, was dead. Bad men had killed him. Oh my, that's why they're so sad. Micah's eyes began to fill with tears too. He and his family believed that Jesus was God's son. He had come to share God's love with all the people and to tell them to be kind and to forgive each other. Once, Micah's mother had taken him to see Jesus, and Micah got to sit on Jesus's lap. Jesus had smiled, and Micah had felt so safe, but he didn't feel safe anymore. He felt afraid. There's Jesus when he was alive. Micah got to sit on his lap, and all the people were listening. The next day was Saturday, the Sabbath day, and Micah stayed indoors with his family all day. They talked about God and Jesus, and they lit the Sabbath candles and had a meal of lamb and bread. No one did work on the Sabbath day. It was a time to rest and be with the people that you loved. Well, Micah usually felt happy and safe on the Sabbath day, but not today. He thought about the angry people and about never seeing Jesus again and about the little eggs that might not hatch. I think Micah's feeling very sad today, huh? Early the next day, Micah woke up while it was still dark. He remembered the scary feeling he had when the angry people shouted and the soldiers marched through the streets. And then Micah remembered the nest in the tree and the 3 speckled eggs. I wonder what had happened to them. Were they still there? Quickly, he tossed his tunic over his head and tied his sandals on his feet. Quietly, he tiptoed out of the house. He raced to the garden and scrambled up the old olive tree. Carefully, he crept out in the branch and peeked into the bird's nest. The 3 speckled eggs were as still as stones. So nothing had happened yet. Then all of a sudden, Micah heard voices. Someone was coming. He ducked behind a branch and peeked out through the leaves. He tried to stay as still as the little eggs in the nest. Some women hurried up the path and passed right below him. They carried baskets and they were crying and whispering quietly. Looks like these women are sad too. Suddenly, a bright light shone in front of the women and they gasped and in fear and hid their faces. Micah felt his heart pounding. He didn't know what was happening. The light seemed to fade, and Micah saw a man standing in front of the women. He wore a robe of glistening white, and when he spoke, his voice was clear and strong. His voice sounded kind. The man told the women that Jesus was not dead. He was alive. And then he told the women to hurry and tell Jesus' friends the good news. The women were so excited, they dropped their baskets, grabbed up their robes, and ran from the garden laughing with joy. Oh, would you be excited? Just like them if you thought that your friend was dead, but now he was alive? Micah was so excited he almost fell out of the tree. As he grabbed a branch to catch himself, he saw something wiggling in the bird's nest. One of the speckled eggs was cracked, and when he looked more closely, he saw a tiny beak poking out of the shell. The egg was beginning to hatch. Jesus is alive, little bird, Micah whispered. You don't have to hide. It's safe to come out of your shell now because Jesus is alive. Micah jumped to the ground. He wasn't afraid anymore. He looked around at the garden. The first pink rays of sunlight were shining in the east, and streaks of gold and purple lit up the early morning sky. Dew sparkled on the grasses and flowers, and then he heard the first tiny chirp of a baby bird. Have you been hearing some birds chirping outside? The whole world was waking up to a brand new day. Micah's feeling awfully happy now because he now knows that Jesus is alive. And Micah couldn't wait to tell his family the very best news of all. Jesus is alive. Oh, that's the best news. Oh, I love that story. And look, the little baby birds are alive in their nest. Did you see that? Well, boys and girls, I love this story because it reminds me that Jesus is not dead. He's alive. And that's what my family and I celebrate at Easter. In fact, that's why we decided to put a cross on our door. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we painted this cross on our door a couple days ago. And that might be something that you and your family want to do. I also wanted to share with you this garden that we made a couple years ago. When we first read this story, we decided to make a garden just like in the storybook. So we got this cookie tray and some fake flowers. We made some crosses with sticks. And do you see this over here? The tomb? It's empty. That's because Jesus is alive. Yes. So that's what my family and I like to celebrate at Easter. And that's why I love it so much. We keep this in our house as a reminder. And now we have the cross on our door. Well, we're going to celebrate Easter this week. And we're going to do lots of fun Easter things. We're going to do some things with some Easter bunnies and some eggs. But I just wanted to share with you. We'll wait till that truck passes. When you're outside, it's extra noisy, sometimes. I just wanted to share with you the reason why I love Easter so much. So I hope this week, in all of the celebration with your family and friends, that we can remember the reason for Easter. Okay, have a great day. I'll see you in a little bit with some more Easter activities. Bye, friends.